Yeah, so I think we just kind of covered that a little bit. But I want to engage your thoughts. Like, what are the biggest electoral weaknesses of the mainstream Democratic Party? So I think you mentioned that you were pro UBI, but that stance hasn't really been as present during this go around. Has your stances on UBI changed?
Going on a rant. Okay, next.
Nikki, I see the top his hand up.
Oh,
Taj.
hey, am I unmuted?
What was that?
Hey, hello.
I hear you now.
Oh, hey, hey, how's it going? Thanks for being here. Well, virtually and everything. And congratulations on the new grandchild. Yeah. So I noticed that on your stances from last election, I think you mentioned that you were pro UBI, but that stance hasn't really been as present during this go around. Has your stances on UBI changed?
Yeah, I'm not against UBI. The thing about UBI, I'm certainly not against it. Everybody keeps saying you're not for UBI. I've never said I'm
No,
not.
no,
for
I'm
UBI.
not mad at you for that. I used to be
Yeah,
pro
no,
UBI. I'm
saying
kind of
you
not
are.
for it
I'm just
anymore
talking
either.
about,
But
yeah, I'm just talking about how
Mhm.
I see people online. UBI does not answer to the fundamental flaws of hypercapitalism. So as a stopgap emergency measure, let's see if you did it. Let's say if we did it for like 2 years and then did a sunset of it and it has to be addressed. I wouldn't have a problem with that if it's part of a comprehensive plan. For me, if you get universal health care, you get a guaranteed living wage, you get a tuition-free college and tech school, you get free health care, you get free childcare, and you get paid maternity leave, and you get guaranteed sick pay. The ship that is listing so far to one side starts to come back into balance. If during that process, UBI is necessary just because of all the desperation out there, I'm open to that. But notice the candidate who mainly talked about UBI last time was talking about it instead of
yeah,
all these other things. So there wasn't really any fixing of the fundamental problem. But that doesn't mean I'm against UBI.
that makes
I think
that makes a lot of sense.
we need a massive infusion of economic hope and opportunity into the veins of our civilization. Too many people are living on the edge. So first things first, it's kind of like when you go into an emergency room, somebody's brought into the emergency room. The doctor has to choose, if the broken leg or the aorta. I'm gonna have to do the aorta first, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that we have to have a comprehensive plan for what would give the immediate support that people need. If UBI is necessary, it's kind of like we had the American Rescue, and it made a difference in people's lives.
It did. It did.
Right? But that's not your permanent plan for economic justice. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Before we go back to Terry, just wanted to see if Bobby or Rachel or Jen or anyone else that hasn't got a chance to ask a question.
This is Jen. I'm good. I'm trying to rest my voice, but thank you.
Okay. Bobby?
Same as Jen, trying to rest my voice.
Oh no, I might have another question.
All right.
I
And,
see someone named John who I think it hasn't been on before, so I'll allow him to go.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have anything right now.
Do you want to introduce yourself, Dan?
Dan?
Sure.
Hi, Dan.
Yeah.
It's Kiki. Wanted to let you know, I hope you got my email, put you in touch with Dawn.
Oh, yeah, I haven't checked, but thank you.
Okay. You're welcome. Okay,
Yeah.
Catherine. And I just wanted to kind of go back. Taj, did you want to introduce yourself, where you are in Florida, and just so we know a little bit about you too?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I joined kind of late. Yeah, my name's Taj. I'm based in the Orlando, Florida area. And yeah, I've been in activism for since a little bit before 2020, I guess. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I've always been left leaning, I'd say. But I've just found myself a little bit more involved a few years ago.
Cool. And kind of jumping over to Terry, you had another question?
Yes, and I want to remind, Taj is also on the board of the Central Florida Progressive Caucus.
I knew I was underselling myself.
Yes, definitely. So I wanted to know if you have read the full Deficit Myth, the book, and if so, what you think about it, and if not, if you would read it. I get the feeling that a lot of people on this call or the Zoom have not read
When they
it.
strangled Putin.
And they might
What do
be
we mean by
going
that?
by, like, there's a lot of people, detractors of it, that try to say, like, they set up straw houses and then knock them down. And they say things like, well, like she says, you can just print all the money you want and not worry about it. And then they knock down why that's not true or whatever. And that's not at all what the Deficit Myth says, and it's extremely well documented.
Yeah, I have read the book, and I know Stephanie, and I love Stephanie, and I think she's incredible. And I have read it.
Oh, okay, good. Because, like, to me, the focus, what it brings up is the focus should be on the real economy on the federal level. Anyway, yeah, state and local governments have to worry about fiscal budgets, but the federal, when looking at it, should be looking at the real economy of production and distribution of goods and services and the real resources available to do that, and whether we have those or not, and use that as the measure instead of the narrow kind of phony fiscal reason. And then there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do whatever we have, whatever we need. We have the resources to do that, unless we already have a totally fully employed economy where everyone 100% has for good employment or something. But other than that, there wouldn't be a reason. So anyway, I'm just hoping that we can get more publicity to that, because any of this whole thing of people worrying about the deficit and thinking that, oh my goodness, we have to do something about the deficit, that it just, even if our solution is tax the rich or whatever, it still feeds into that whole idea that somehow we don't have the resources, the money to do it, and we've got to go find it somewhere before we do it. So
yeah, absolutely, that's exactly her point.
Yeah, I would just like to add to it, Marianne, that I think it's really good the way you point out the hypocrisy of the Republicans in terms of the deficit and how they're only concerned about the deficit when there's a Democrat in the White House. Otherwise, when Republicans in the White House, they add to the deficit more than Democrats ever have. So that just shows you that it's a complete, red herring and just one more hypocritical lie that Republicans pander. And when we buy into it, this is the problem in this country, is too many people buy into the Republican narrative, which is a false narrative.
I realize that.
Yes, I know you do. I'm just saying, even people on this call don't seem to realize it.
So is there anybody else who has any questions for me?
Yeah, I saw Kenya popped on. Did you want to introduce yourself and ask Marianne a question? Looks like you just muted yourself instead of unmuting yourself.
Can you
I
hear
do
me?
that all the time.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, my name's Ken. I'm in Central Florida. So I didn't have any questions for Marianne. I just wanted to come by and show support because I did volunteer work, with other progressive organizations in Central Florida, including on Jen Perlman's campaign. So I just wanted to give you support because there's nobody out here in this race that's doing anything close to what you're doing. And it's really disheartening when we're staring down, fascism here in Florida alone. So thank you.
It truly is incredible, isn't it? And I so appreciate your support. And what you're saying is so true. Like, where is everybody? It's almost like, where is everybody? Right?
Yeah. It's very, very strange that we've all just, the Democratic Party seems to just have given up of like just saying, oh, Biden is good enough when clearly it's not because things are still spiraling out of control, us, biological and transgender people, as females, we just lost, the right to even have abortion. And then we're losing contraceptive rights under, Biden's watch and under a Democratic majority's watch. And it's like, you have to do a whole lot more to do something about this. You've had 50 years to deal with this. And now you're just like, shrug. Like, we need someone who's actually willing to fight people who aren't willing to, fight on a level playing field. And that's what the Republicans do. Just like the previous speaker said, they don't care about the deficit, when it's Republicans. So why are we acting like it somehow matters now? Just like, no, hush, shut up. It's nonsense.
Well, I think what you just said was so true. The Democrats have 50 years to work on something. And then when it blows up in their face, they shrug like, yeah, well, there's nothing we can do. Where were you for the last 50 years? But we have to have the energy to just cut that cord and start over. And I think it was Jimmy who was talking, wasn't it Jimmy talking about his friends who have just had it with the Democratic Party? I hope that they understand that this is a campaign of someone who's had it with the Democratic elite myself, or I wouldn't be running. And this is not a campaign that's a Democratic establishment elite campaign.
I had so many more questions.
Wondering if we can take advantage of having so many folks from the Democratic Progressive Caucus here. If you have any advice of the strong local activist groups that we should be connecting with, certainly the national entities will probably be trying to keep their access. But the locals are full of people who are passionate about these issues. Like, where should we be going? Which group should we be connecting with? What events do you suggest that we kind of get the word out? Because, Marianne is an amazing candidate, and, we just want to build a strong organization to shock the Democratic Party.
Catherine, thank you so much for that. This is Kiki. Kat, if you could drop I texted you. If you could drop it in the chat for me so that everybody can have my phone number and also my email, so we can keep the conversation open, keep things going. That would be
Please don't
great.
put that on stream.
Feel
Please
free
don't
to
put that on
reach
stream.
out. And,
oh my God, please don't put that. Oh
can,
my God.
Continue to chat
So I
about
didn't
how we
want on
can move
stream.
things along. But yeah, thank you. If you could drop that in the chat, Catherine, that'd be great.
And I'd like to come to Florida probably in September. So we will have more conversation about where you think I should go, what you think I should do, the colleges we talked about last time. So if Kiki has that information, Kiki, share that with Tim.
Ask me for emails.
I know you mentioned Miami. I don't know, maybe Orlando might be better because that way it's central to everything.
Yeah.
North Florida,
Well, yeah, give all that information to Kiki and then
talk
Kiki,
to
we can talk about.
Perfect. And then Nina, you had your hand up. Did you have suggestions?
Well, as another organization, I might suggest Organized Florida. which is an organization that works outside of the Democratic Party. And
Really?
I know there's
I
a
didn't know
lot
that.
of talk about the inside-outside work with the Democratic Party. I've chosen to work inside the Democratic Party because Florida is a closed primary state, and the primaries are very important elections, and I want to be able to vote in the primaries. So, and it's very important for progressives and voters interested in Marianne's campaign to know that they need to be registered as Democrats to vote in the primary. So that's one way that the word needs to be gotten out too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
It's a
my
big
God, there's so
deal.
many questions.
Very big deal.
That's
Yeah.
an excellent point. I actually did this, Marianne, in 2020. I've always been registered independent, and I changed my my party to Democrat when you ran in 2020 so that I could vote for you in the primary.
Okay.
A lot of people don't realize that unless you're, a designated party, you don't get to vote in the primary.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, once the primaries start happening, that's exactly.
It's a crazy realization. It's kind of like, you have to pick in order to do, it's weird. I know I was shocked, but I did. I changed my party. So that's a very, very good, a good thing that maybe we should try to talk with independents and explain the importance of choosing a party.
Thank you so much.
Jen?
Yes, I think along those lines, I too, in 2020, changed from Democrat to NPA because I was so disgusted with the DNC and what they did with the primaries. And so I think reaching out to those disenfranchised voters who have switched from both Republican and Democrat to independent or no party affiliation, I think reaching out and showing them, hey,
I need to figure out a way to
we
hide the chat.
recognize that you're done with the duopoly, but here in Florida, you cannot vote in a primary.
Oh.
So if you really want to stick it, why don't you vote for the best candidate who is also basically running against the DNC, which would be you, Marianne? So they can always change their party affiliation back after they vote. So I think there's a huge resource in those independent voters who still tend to vote more Democratic side of the aisle. And I think that's a good place because they're often overlooked, especially here in Florida, since we are a closed primary, to, reach out to those, to give them a reason to, even if it's for a week, switch their party affiliation to.
Or even a day.
Yeah. And, I've also had some people who were very excited to see Cornel West talking about running third party. They're not excited about the People's Party, but my argument was like, hey, you're not going to vote for Biden anyway, then just vote for Marianne in the primary. Like, let's just make it that much more exciting, show.
Because there won't be a primary of the People's Party.
Exactly. And technically, from what I've heard, he hasn't even filed the paperwork yet. So
damn.
But I'm pushing the let's vote for Marianne in the primary, since you can't vote for him in the primary anyway, just to show and make a a huge statement to Biden and the DNC that we're done with this rigging. It's time you listen to us. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. I think there's a lot of logic out there. Right, just vote for that person in the primary. Well, we have several months to try to convince people of that, and I hope we'll be successful.
And Taj?
Yeah. Hey, sorry, it's me again. I kind of sort of have I have hella questions, not gonna lie. But I'm gonna make. Actually, let me cut down which ones are the best ones to ask. All right, I had a couple that are some of the ones that are kind of on topic. Yeah. So I think we just kind of covered that a little bit. But I want to engage your thoughts. What are the biggest electoral weaknesses of the mainstream Democratic Party? So when I say main Dems, I mean mainstream Dems, I mean the neoliberal section of the Democratic Party. What do you think the biggest weaknesses are as far as
I'm sorry, what are the biggest what?
weaknesses as far as like drawing in voters, and like how would you address those weaknesses?
What is the biggest weaknesses of the Democratic elite? The Democratic.
Yeah, when it comes to drawing in voters. So say like people aren't necessarily excited
people
for.
See yeah, when I was growing up, we would complain and go, yeah. But for the most part, when I was growing up, there was still the feeling that the Democratic Party was the unequivocal, unabashed advocate for the working people of the United States. That was the way it felt. It felt like that was the Democrats, and then the Republicans were standing up for the corporations. And now, starting with what Bill Clinton did when he started this thing called the Democratic Leadership Council, his whole thing was we can have it both ways. We can play with the big boys, but at the same time, try to help people. And it took the soul out of the Democratic Party. And so now what they try to do sometimes is they see how much suffering exists, and they try to lessen the suffering on the periphery, but not so much that they will challenge the underlying corporate forces whose return always makes that suffering inevitable. So with the Republicans, at least they don't pretend. But with the Democrats, we all hear them all the time. And I think Obama really perfected this. They'll still say the right things. It's what they do. Like for instance, Biden says, climate change is an existential threat to the species. That's what we want to hear. Yeah, and then he's given more oil drilling permits than Trump did. And he okayed the Willow Project. And he's okayed the exportation of liquefied natural gas. He said, I'm going to raise the minimum wage. And he raised it for federal workers, but then when the parliamentarian said you couldn't take it any further, we can't take it any further. He says, I'm Labor Joe. And then when it comes to the railroad workers, he didn't show up for them. So the basic, and then they take the whole progressive wing and they sit on top of them. They treat progressives like we're the unruly children. We've got to sit down and shut up because the grown-ups, they've got this. Well, first of all, they don't got this, or we wouldn't be where we are. And even the progressives, they get like locked into the system, because that's how I feel about running. Where are they? There's a level on which, why am I the one who has to do this? Why aren't they here? Well, because the way the system works, you run for president against Joe Biden, we'll slaughter you electorally next time. We'll bury you with the money we give to your opponent in your next primary. You'll be taken off this committee or that. You will have no power. So that's, I think, the problem that people have with it. They've just heard the empty promises over and over and over again. Even with the election of Obama. I mean, in 2008, the election of Obama was such a moment. And we gave him everything. We gave him the White House, we gave him the Senate, and we gave him the House to do what he campaigned saying he would do. And he got in there and he basically did as much as the corporate elite would allow him to do. Except people say they wouldn't let him, except there are a whole lot of cases where there's no evidence even tried, because they're playing the game, and they will just go up to the line, but they will stop before they piss off the pharmaceuticals or piss off the insurance companies or piss off big oil or piss off the defense contractors. And that's why you need someone like myself from the outside who says, I'm not from that system. And I'm not, and I will take joy in watching them squirm. And I will use, I won't have a magic wand. The president shouldn't have a magic wand, but I will be able to do a lot with executive order to break the chain with the corporate tyranny that now prevails in this country.
Thank you. Mods, am I allowed to ask like one or two more questions? I'm so sorry.
Yep, kind of try to keep it within 5 minutes, but yeah, we want to get good questions out there, so go for it.
Okay.
I'm going to have a heart out, yes.
Okay. All right,
Marianne, when's your heart stop, Marianne?
Well, I have that. Yeah, I mean, I had 10 minutes max.
Uh-oh.
I'd like to leave
Okay,
5
10 minutes
actually.
max. Okay, so Taj, 2 quick questions, and if you would just say them both at the same time so Marianne can address them quickly, and then we'll jump to Ethan, and then Dan and Kathy.
All right, roger that. All right, well, thoughts on the Cornel West campaign, and also you're coming to Florida in September. I don't know if it's Miami or Orlando or Tampa or whatever, but can we have a sit-down interview? Me and a few buddies are trying to launch like a YouTube channel, so we'd love to interview you in September. I know you're mega busy right now, now until 2000.
We can do that now. So if Kiki has your information and Kiki, you give it to Tim, then we can arrange that whenever you want to.
Oh, dang. Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right, well, Cornel West campaign. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh, what are my thoughts on it? Listen, I've known Cornel for years, and I love him. We all love him. Listen, it's a democracy. If Cornel feels in his heart like running, good for him. I mean, we should all be out there with our voices. A lot of the policies that he's talking about, I'm already talking about. And that's a little frustrating for me when people hear certain things he says and go, oh, thank God somebody's saying that. It's like, excuse me? But, everybody who runs should run who feels moved to run. And that's what democracy is. And God bless him.
All right. Thank you so much.
Ethan, you've joined us, and wondering if you could take a moment to introduce yourself and, ask a question of Marianne.
Of the Duval Progressive Caucus in Jacksonville, Florida, which is recently elected a Democratic mayor who ran on progressive values. Marianne, thank you for
congratulations. I read about that race. Yeah.
That was a good
exciting.
race.
Yeah. It's really great. And in case
no, we're losing him.
And Democrats who won that race. But Marianne, I just want to thank you for running on the progressive platform.
Thank you.
And it's a huge thank you from young people, because you're carrying forward an agenda that we need to survive. It's very serious, and you're inspiring many people. That's what Bernie did to me years ago, and to this day, I'm still working. So even if you don't become president, you're creating the drop that will create the ripples.
Well, I so appreciate it. It's just heartbreaking for me to hear an American young person talk about how hard it is to survive. This is the richest country in the world.
Right.
It's wrong. You helped me get to the White House, and it's not like I will be able to take a magic wand and make every single change we want right away, but you will have a visceral sense that we're beginning to turn this around. I promise you that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dan?
Well, that's all for me.
Let's see. Let me get this email. Let's see. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Marianne, my sister loves what you stand for, but she had some criticism of your, I guess, your personality.
Personality?
Can I read that? Can I read? She was she's 86. She was a freedom rider in 1961.
Wow.
And she spent time in the Jackson jail. Trying to get the email here. Okay, can you still hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. She hadn't seen you before, and I asked her to watch at least the first 7 minutes of your interview on C-SPAN. And I'm just going to read her short email. Quote, I found her manner very off-putting. While I agree passionately with everything she's for, she does not appear to be someone who would be effective as a leader. Oh, by the way, she's been a psychotherapist for 40 years. Politics is about the art of compromise, most unfortunately. I wish it weren't. It must be excruciating for someone who holds her values, like Biden, to have to compromise to some extent what he believes in order to keep our country afloat. Would it have been better in these last weeks of constant negotiations with the Republicans to have ended up unable to pay our debts and all the frightening consequences of that? Or was it necessary to do what Biden did? And I know that you would have done the 14th Amendment. Just another sentence or two. She sounds very superior in her speech and manner, and I find it alienating. I feel she would be a very ineffective president despite her great values. I wish I felt more positive.
Well, I won't put her down for a house party. Your sister sounds like a wonderful woman. When you told me her, background, her background, the Freedom Riders, she sounds extraordinary. I'm also sad to hear women put down other women's personalities.
Yeah. Okay. I only wanted to mention it.
And I also said, pardon.
Oh, I just wanted to, share that with you. My only motive was if there's anything for any of us to learn from it. That's all.
I sound like I won't compromise. What do I say to that, Dan? Politics is the art of compromise.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
With your vision, you must compromise. Politics is the art of compromise. You must talk to people and make deals with people. So then she uses Biden's debt ceiling negotiations as the kind of compromise she honors. If your sister thinks that what Biden did with Kevin McCarthy is the kind of honorable compromise that makes for a great president, then I'm not her candidate. Because I don't see that as honorable compromise. So we honestly have a difference. Her personalizing it, I'm sorry that my personality doesn't, it's very difficult. They do that in politics. You said several times, I like what she stands for. I just don't like her. I hear a lot of that these days.
Damn.
I'm sorry. I'm not gonna walk around with this mantle of shame. And maybe in a particular interview, I felt I wasn't really, how can a woman say she wasn't soft and sweet enough? It's like, and when are we gonna stop this? But she sounds like an incredible woman. I admire her greatly. And if, like I said, if she thinks that what Biden did was the kind of compromise we need, then I'm not her candidate. And I hope that somebody else will be. Apparently Biden is her candidate, and I respect that.
Yeah, thank you. And one last comment, one critique I have of my sister's email is that she made some comment about, didn't think you'd be an effective leader. You've been an effective leader your whole life. So she's wrong about that, and the kind of work you've done isn't maybe hardball politics per se, but there's plenty of politics, in what you've done all your life, really. Just relating to people is politics.
And there might have been, sometimes when I look at a politician, I'm turned off by an interview, and then I see another interview and I like them a lot better. Because we're people. I just read something from Jimmy.
And you know what? She said, okay.
Sorry, go on, Dan, go on.
No, and since then, she's been spending time reading about you more. So that's great. So thank you.
It's so hard, guys, too. If a man speaks with confidence and out there, he's called a leader. And sometimes a woman is like, she's perceived as arrogant or uppity or.
Yeah, no, that goes.
And just before we go to Kathy, I just want to point out, I dropped in the chat, but for anyone watching the recording, Marianne is kind of, in addition to running for president, which is a full-time job, she and her now coordinating this Firelight chat series, where on Wednesday evenings at 6 p.m. Eastern, she's having